Imagine walking into the lobby of one of the largest, most conservative banks in the world,
Right.
and you sit down across from a loan officer. You have a solid job, excellent credit, and like $200,000 in cash just sitting in a checking account.
A great position to be in.
Exactly. And you look this loan officer right in the eye and say, I want to borrow $800,000.
Okay.
And you tell them, I plan to take this money and invest it in a highly diversified, mathematically optimized portfolio of the S&P 500, gold, and maybe some blue chip digital assets.
Oh, wow.
Right. And you say, I have the historical data proving this portfolio yields near double-digit returns over a decade.
Yeah, that loan officer would gently but very firmly ask you to leave.
Yeah, they'd probably call security.
They really might. I mean, the idea of handing an individual almost $1 million in unsecured capital to just, play the global financial markets, it's considered institutional insanity.
But this is the crazy part. If you walk into that exact same lobby, sit across from that exact same loan officer with that exact same financial profile, and you say a single magic word,
House.
house, the entire paradigm shifts. They don't call security. They offer you coffee.
You could pull out the paperwork.
Exactly. They hand you that $800,000 locked in at a historically low fixed interest rate for the next 3 decades. I mean, you were handed 5 times your net worth to buy a pile of wood, glass, and concrete.
It is wild when you frame it like that.
Right. So why? What is the fundamental underlying architecture of a system that views a static physical structure as like infinitely safer than the most sophisticated financial instruments on Earth?
Well, we are going to take our time today answering that. We're going to go slow, step by step, because the concepts we're unpacking today, they really reshape how you view your entire financial life.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm Satosha.
And I'm Satoshi. And we are examining a fascinating piece of research titled The Capital of the American Dream. Our mission today for this deep dive is to break down 2 incredibly powerful discoveries from this research.
And we really want you to grasp these.
Right. First, we will discover the hidden cheat code of the 30-year fixed mortgage. We're going to unravel that exact mystery of why a bank will hand you $800,000 for a house, but laugh you out of the lobby for Bitcoin.
And second, we're going to explore how this single financial transaction, this mortgage, acts as the glue for so much more.
Yeah, it goes way beyond the money.
It really does. It underpins mental health, community safety, and honestly, the structural integrity of the entire national economy.
So by the end of this deep dive, you will understand the architecture of middle-class wealth. And our hope is that you'll be motivated to completely rethink your own approach to long-term stability and, geographical roots.
Let's get into it. So the research forces us to confront a reality that's just hiding in plain sight. The greatest financial instrument available to the average person isn't some exotic hedge fund strategy. It's the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage.
It really is. To understand why the bank acts the way it does in your opening scenario, we have to look at how the global financial system assesses risk and, more importantly, human behavior.
Human behavior, yeah.
Right. They consider the traditional American mortgage to be the safest loan in existence.
Okay, wait. I need to push back on that immediately.
I figured you might.
Yeah, calling a residential mortgage the safest loan in existence feels like, I don't know, an aggressive case of historical amnesia.
You're thinking of 2008.
Of course I am. We all lived through the aftermath of 2008. We watched millions of foreclosures. We saw the entire global financial system brought to its knees, specifically because of residential mortgages.
Right.
So how can the research possibly justify this label when we have literal proof of this exact asset class causing a global meltdown? Does that make sense as a concern?
It makes total sense. That is the necessary pushback. But it requires us to separate the underlying asset from the financial derivatives built on top of it. Let's review that one more time.
Okay.
What failed in 2008 was not the standard 30-year fixed-rate mortgage held by a qualified buyer.
Okay, so what was it?
What failed was this toxic ecosystem of subprime adjustable rate mortgages given to completely unqualified buyers. And then those were bundled into incomprehensibly complex synthetic derivatives.
Ah, right, the derivative.
Exactly. When we isolate the traditional 30-year fixed loan, the default rate is extraordinarily low.
Really? Like historically low?
Yes. The bank knows that historically and psychologically, humans will endure immense financial pain before they let a bank take the roof over their family's head.
Oh, wow. That makes sense.
Right. People will liquidate retirement accounts, they'll take second jobs, they will cut every discretionary expense to zero just to protect their shelter.
So the bank isn't actually betting on the lumber or the drywall. They are betting on the most primal human instinct.
Exactly.
The absolute desperation to protect your sanctuary.
You nailed it. And because of that immense confidence in human behavioral psychology, the financial system allows the middle class to do something extraordinary. They allow everyday citizens to engage in a practice called arbitraging the Fed.
Okay, let's slow down and unpack that. Arbitraging the Fed.
Yeah.
Because when most people hear the word arbitrage, they picture, like, high-frequency trading firms in Chicago or London.
Sure, exploiting microsecond price discrepancies.
Exactly. But this research argues that a middle-class family buying a colonial in the suburbs is doing the exact same thing with the Federal Reserve.
In a way, yes.
How does that actually work in practice? Let's review the mechanics of that.
Think of it as temporal arbitrage. You are arbitraging time and inflation.
Time and inflation, okay.
Right. The Federal Reserve controls the baseline cost of borrowing money. Through the mechanism of the 30-year fixed mortgage, a family secures what the research calls day zero capital.
Day zero capital, meaning you get it all up front.
Exactly. You receive a massive front-loaded lump sum of money on day one, and it's locked at a relatively low static interest rate.
So the rate never changes for 30 years.
Never. And over the next 30 years, inflation will constantly erode the purchasing power of the dollar.
Right. A dollar today buys more than a dollar in 10 years.
Exactly. So the money you use to pay back the loan in year 25 is actually worth significantly less than the money the bank handed you in year 1.
Oh, wow.
Meanwhile, the physical asset, the home, tends to appreciate alongside or even slightly ahead of that same inflation.
So you are using the bank's money to capture the upside of inflation while inflating away the true cost of your own debt.
You've got it. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense, but it's a wild way to look at it. To really visualize the sheer asymmetric power of this leverage, the research constructs this brilliantly detailed case study.
Yes, the case study is great. Let's walk through this slowly because the math is honestly staggering.
Let's do it. Imagine a couple. They are 32 years old.
Young, starting out.
Right. And they have been highly disciplined, living way below their means, and they have managed to accumulate $200,000 in liquid savings.
That is their seed capital.
Exactly. So standing at this financial crossroads at age 32, the research models two distinct life paths for them.
Path A and Path B.
Right. Path A represents the traditional leap into homeownership. They deploy that entire $200,000 as a 20% down payment on a prime downtown property.
And that property is priced at exactly $1 million.
$1 million. Now, Path B represents the highly mobile, modern approach. They choose not to buy.
Okay, so they rent.
Yep. They rent a highly comparable property in that exact same desirable neighborhood for $4,000 a month. And they deploy their $200,000 seed capital into the global financial markets.
So Path A is the homeowner, Path B is the renter and dedicated investor.
Exactly. Does that setup make sense to everyone listening? Path A, buy the $1 million home. Path B, rent for $4,000 a month and invest.
Let's dig into the strict monthly mathematics of Path A first.
Okay, the homeowner.
Right. If they buy this $1 million property, they are taking on an $800,000 loan. The research models this using a standard 30-year fixed rate of 6%.
6%. Got it.
Now, the monthly outlay for a homeowner is incredibly complex compared to a renter. The research meticulously calculates the true carrying cost.
It's not just the mortgage.
Not at all. First, you have the principal and interest payment on that $800,000 loan, which comes to approximately $4,796.
So already higher than the $4,000 rent.
Right. But the structural costs of ownership go much further. In a prime urban market, property taxes operate at an effective rate of about 1.2% annually.
Ouch.
Yeah, that adds an additional $1,000 to the monthly burden.
And then you have to account for the reality of maintaining a physical structure. Things break. So the research factors in a standard urban homeowners association fee, plus a necessary maintenance reserve fund. And that totals roughly $500 a month.
And don't forget, comprehensive home insurance at another $100.
Right. So totaling those line items, the mortgage, the property tax, the HOA, maintenance, and insurance, this 32-year-old couple is facing a gross monthly payout of $6,396.
That is a big number.
It is. That number immediately makes Path B look incredibly attractive. I mean, the renter is paying $4,000. The homeowner is bleeding nearly $6,400 a month.
It looks bad on the surface.
It really does. But here is where we have to introduce a massive structural advantage built directly into the United States tax code.
Right, the policy side.
And just a quick note for you listening, we are going to look strictly at the mathematics of this government policy. We are not taking any political stance on the legislation itself. We just need to detail the financial impact of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act of 2026.
Commonly referred to as the OBBBA.
The OBBBA, yes. So how did this change things?
Well, the OBBBA fundamentally altered the calculus of middle-class wealth accumulation. The research highlights two specific provisions within this legislation.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, it raised the cap on state and local tax deductions, the SALT-C deduction, to $40,400.
Okay.
And second, it made the mortgage interest deduction a permanent fixture of the tax code.
Right. But how does that legislative jargon actually translate to the checking account of our couple on Path A? Like, what is the actual mathematical mechanism of this tax shield?
It basically functions as a retroactive discount on the cost of borrowing.
A discount.
Yeah. Because the couple is carrying an $800,000 loan at 6%, they are paying a massive amount of interest in the early years of the mortgage.
That's how amortization works, right? Mostly interest up front.
Exactly. So the OBBBA allows them to deduct the vast majority of that interest alongside their heavy local property taxes directly from their taxable income.
Oh, wow.
They are effectively shielding a massive portion of their salary from federal taxation. The research calculates that for this specific financial profile, these itemized deductions generate an incremental tax savings of $556 every single month.
Let's pause. Let's ensure we have the final numbers locked in here.
Yeah.
Because we're going slow.
Let's review.
The growth cost to keep the house running was $6,396.
Right.
But the tax code steps in and hands them an effective monthly rebate of $556.
Yes.
Therefore, their net absolute final monthly cost of ownership is $5,840.
That is the vital baseline right there, $5,840 a month to own versus $4,000 a month to rent.
This brings us to what the research calls the delta, the ownership premium.
The delta, exact.
The couple on Path A is paying exactly $1,840 more every single month for the privilege of putting their name on a deed.
And this sets the stage for a brutal 6-year financial showdown.
A showdown between the two paths. I love this part.
Because the research assumes the renter on Path B is an absolute machine of financial discipline.
Right. They aren't just blowing the extra cash.
Exactly. They don't take that $1,800 delta and go lease a luxury car. Every single month, they take that difference and inject it directly into their investment portfolio.
So the renter starts with their $200,000 seed capital, and they dollar cost average that $1,840 delta month after month.
Yep. And the research models a highly sophisticated, rational, and modern diversified portfolio for them.
What does this split look like?
The capital is split evenly. 33% into the S&P 500 for traditional equity exposure, 33% into gold as a historical safe haven hedge, and 33% into Bitcoin for high-growth digital asset exposure.
It's basically the ultimate modern portfolio.
It really is. And
the growth projections used in the research are wildly successful. Over this 6-year period, the S&P 500 is modeled at a 12.6% annual return.
Great return.
The Bitcoin allocation surges at 15% annually, and the gold allocation provides a steady 8.2%.
So when you blend those assets, the weighted average growth of this diversified liquid portfolio is an astonishing 11.9% every single year.
Almost 12% a year.
Yeah. And the compounding effect of starting with $200,000, adding over $1,800 a month, and growing it at nearly 12% is massive.
What's the final number for the renter?
At the end of year 6, the renter on Path B has generated a net gain of $204,000.
Wow.
They have essentially doubled their initial net worth through pure liquid market investments.
A $200,000 profit in 6 years while renting. I mean, the financial independence community would throw a parade for that kind of return.
They absolutely would.
It seems like the definitive proof that renting and investing is the superior path.
It does seem that way.
But we have to look at what happened over in the slow lane on Path A. The homeowner didn't have a single spare dollar to put into the stock market.
Yeah.
Every ounce of their liquidity was absorbed by the house.
Right.
And the house, sitting there quietly, only appreciated at 7.5% annually.
Compared to nearly 12% for the renter.
Exactly. The liquid portfolio grew at nearly 12%. The house grew at 7.5%.
But the percentage growth of the underlying asset is only half the equation. You have to remember the leverage.
Right, the day zero capital.
Exactly. The homeowner, after 6 years of that 7.5% growth, realizes a gain of $508,704.
Wait, really? Over $500,000?
After $500,000.
Let's review those final numbers because they completely defy common intuition. The renter, leveraging the fastest-moving, most aggressive digital and traditional assets on Earth, made $204,000. The homeowner, sitting in a static building, growing at a fraction of the speed, generated over $500,000 in pure wealth.
Yes. And as the research points out, under current tax law, a massive portion of the gain on the sale of a primary residence is completely tax-free.
Oh, man.
Whereas the renter will be hit with capital gains taxes the moment they try to realize their profits.
The disparity is just staggering. The renter outperformed the homeowner in terms of pure asset growth percentage, yet the homeowner walked away with 2.5 times more actual wealth.
And this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, I was trying to wrap my head around how this math actually works conceptually.
Yeah.
And think of it like an agricultural competition.
Okay, I like this.
Both couples are trying to grow a garden, right? The renter on Path B is incredibly smart. They buy the most exotic, genetically optimized, high-yield seeds available. The Bitcoin, the tech stocks.
The best seeds money can buy.
Right. But they are planting them in a tiny window box on a balcony. They are constrained entirely by the physical limits of the cash they actually hold in their hand.
The $200,000 plus the monthly delta.
Exactly. Now, the homeowner on Path A, they buy regular, slow-growing potato seeds. Nothing fancy.
Just a standard house.
Right. But the moment they decide to plant, a massive institution drives up and builds an $800,000 climate-controlled industrial greenhouse on their property for them to use.
The greenhouse analogy captures the structural reality perfectly.
Does that make sense to you listening?
Yeah.
The window box versus the greenhouse.
It's the perfect way to visualize it. The renter earns an 11.9% return, but they only earn it on their $200,000 plus their monthly contributions.
Small base.
Exactly. The homeowner only earns a 7.5% return, but they are earning that return on the entire $1 million asset from the very first day.
Because the bank provided 80% of the capital required to purchase the asset.
Right. But the homeowner is legally entitled to 100% of the asset's appreciation.
That is the cheat code. This leads to the most jaw-dropping metric in the entire research document. It's called the threshold statement.
Yes, the threshold statement.
We just looked at a scenario where the housing market was relatively healthy, growing at 7.5%. But what if it's a terrible decade for real estate? What if the market barely moves at all?
Due to the overwhelming asymmetrical power of that day zero capital, the threshold for a homeowner to outpace a renter is shockingly low.
How low?
The research mathematically proves that the $1 million home only needs to appreciate by an average of 3.4% annually to exactly match the absolute dollar returns of the renter's aggressive 11.9% portfolio.
3.4%.
Yes.
That is barely outpacing historical inflation.
Mm.
If a house basically just treads water against the devaluation of the dollar, it completely neutralizes the compounding power of the greatest stock and crypto bull runs.
It's almost hard to believe until you see the math.
Exactly. If you are sitting there listening to this, trying to process these numbers, you are not alone. We are going slow, but this is a profound conceptual shift.
It really is.
So if you want to sit with this data, trace the amortization tables, and really absorb the math of the threshold statement, you need to visit our research website. The key points, the complete breakdown of path A versus path B,
Mm.
it is all right there.
It's so helpful to see it visually.
And we have designed it as a pure reading experience. It is the way the internet was actually supposed to be. No pop-ups, no trackers harvesting your data, no cookies slowing down your device, no forced login screens, just pure, unadulterated information.
Beautiful.
The link is in the description. And the best part? Thanks to new tech, the Deep Dive website is a progressive web app now.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah, you can install it as an app directly from your browser on your PC, your tablet, or your smartphone. You can literally take this research offline. You can be sitting on the beach or 30,000 feet up on a flight, and you can read the entire breakdown without paying a dime for terrible airline Wi-Fi. Go check the math for yourself.
Examining the raw data is crucial. It transitions the concept of the American dream from a nostalgic cultural ideal into a hard mathematical reality. The 30-year fixed mortgage is an unparalleled wealth generation engine.
Okay, so we have thoroughly mapped the financial spreadsheet. We understand the sheer mathematical superiority of the greenhouse over the window box.
We do.
But humans are psychological creatures, not Excel macros. What does this mean beyond the balance sheet?
This is where the research shifts focus entirely. It moves away from capital creation to a behavioral psychology concept it calls ontological security.
Ontological security, that sounds heavy.
It is. Ontological security is the psychological bedrock of human existence. It refers to a deep, internalized sense of permanence, order, and predictability in one's environment. So, feeling safe.
Yes, but deeper. It is the subconscious knowing that your sanctuary is absolute. When an individual lacks ontological security, they operate in a state of persistent, low-level cognitive threat.
Wow. But why is renting inherently incompatible with true ontological security? I mean, even if you rent a penthouse and have millions in the bank, what is missing?
Control.
Control.
Yes, when you rent, the ultimate sovereignty of your physical environment belongs to a third party. Your lease could be non-renewed because the owner wishes to liquidate the asset. Your rent could be spiked beyond your capacity to pay.
Right. You're always at someone else's mercy.
Exactly. The rules governing your daily life, whether you can own a pet, alter a room, or repair a fixture, are dictated externally. The research demonstrates a direct correlation in psychometric evaluations here.
What do the evaluations show?
Homeowners consistently report significantly lower levels of chronic psychological distress and higher baseline life satisfaction, specifically because that layer of environmental vulnerability has been removed. It's the difference between standing on solid granite versus standing on a beautiful, expensive rug that someone else holds the corner of.
That's a great way to put it.
You never know when they might decide to pull it.
Right.
And this psychological reality doesn't just impact the adult signing the mortgage. The research dives deep into the downstream effects this security has on the development of children.
The developmental metrics are where the concept of ontological security becomes tangible. The research highlights a staggering statistic. Children of homeowners move at 1/5 the rate of children of renters.
Wait, let's review that. For every 5 times a renting family is forced to pack their lives into cardboard boxes, change their address, and sever their local ties, a homeowning family experiences that disruption exactly once.
Exactly once. And the cognitive toll of geographic instability on a developing brain is immense.
I can imagine.
Frequent moves disrupt the continuity of education. A child loses the teachers who have begun to understand their specific learning modalities. They lose the peer groups that form the basis of early socialization.
It's like resetting their whole world every few years.
It is. The research directly correlates the geographical stability provided by a fixed mortgage to measurable academic advantages.
Like what kind of advantages?
Children raised in earned homes display higher standardized test scores, lower behavioral incident rates, and significantly higher probabilities of high school and university graduation.
Wow.
The physical stability of the structure translates directly into the neurological stability of the child.
So the bank's greenhouse isn't just protecting the financial seeds. It is providing the exact atmospheric conditions necessary for a child's psychological development.
Yeah.
That is profound.
It really is.
But let's scale this up. We go from the individual mind to the family unit to the street level. When you transition from a renter to an owner, you fundamentally alter your relationship with the physical space around you. You undergo a metamorphosis into what the research terms a community stakeholder.
The behavioral shift from consumer to stakeholder is one of the most powerful forces in urban economics.
I was trying to find the right analogy for this. Initially, I thought about a hotel. Like, you don't upgrade the plumbing in a hotel because you were just passing through.
Sure.
But that's too simple. Think about it like a computer network.
Okay, I'm following.
When you rent, you are basically a guest user logging in remotely. You use the bandwidth, you access the files, but you have no administrative rights, and frankly, you don't care if the server rack is overheating.
Because it's not your server.
Exactly. But when you buy a home, you become a physical node in the mainframe. You
Hmm.
own a piece of the server. Suddenly, the health of the entire network is inextricably linked to your own personal survival.
That is a highly accurate representation of the incentive structures at play here. Homeowners possess a massively leveraged financial asset whose value is entirely dependent on the microgeography surrounding it.
Right. Their neighborhood.
Because of this, their behavior changes radically. The research quantifies this shift. Homeowners are more than twice as likely to participate in local governance, join neighborhood associations, and vote in municipal elections.
Because if the city council decides to rezone the empty lot at the end of the street for industrial use, or if they decide to cut the budget for the local elementary school, it isn't just an abstract political annoyance.
No, not at all.
It is a direct, quantifiable attack on the value of their million-dollar asset.
Exactly. The financial leverage forces civic engagement. Furthermore, homeowners invest private capital into public goods.
What do you mean by public goods?
The research notes the phenomenon of livability investments. Homeowners upgrade facades, plant trees, and maintain landscaping. They are physically elevating the aesthetic and functional baseline of the neighborhood.
And it directly impacts physical safety too, right? The research draws a hard line between the density of homeownership and the reduction of local crime rates.
It does. When individuals are financially anchored to a specific street, they become highly territorial.
In a good way.
Yes. They organize community watch programs, they learn the routines of their neighbors, they immediately recognize anomalies like a strange vehicle idling or an unfamiliar person testing a gate.
Right, because they have to protect the greenhouse.
Exactly. This heightened state of vigilance, driven entirely by the desire to protect an illiquid asset, creates a localized environment that is highly hostile to criminal activity.
The research creates a stark contrast here. It talks about the friction between social cohesion and rootless mobility.
Social cohesion is key.
In a neighborhood dominated by 30-year mortgages, you build deep intergenerational networks. People know the names of the kids down the street. There is a fabric of trust.
Yes.
But in rental-heavy markets, you experience constant churn. The population turns over every 12 to 24 months. This rootless mobility mathematically prevents the formation of deep social bonds, creating isolated consumers rather than a cohesive community.
Social cohesion is essentially the immune system of a city. Without a critical mass of stakeholders anchored by long-term debt, the community cannot defend itself against economic or social shocks.
Speaking of communities putting down roots and building interconnected networks, we want to ask you to help grow ours. If you geek out on deep finance, behavioral psychology, and understanding the hidden architecture of the world around us, share this show with your friends.
We'd really appreciate it.
Share it in your group chats. Or with that one colleague who loves going down these rabbit holes. How do you share it? If you are an audio listener, we are everywhere. Fountain.fm, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music. All those links are neatly organized on our research website. Link is in the description.
Super easy to find.
And hey, if you prefer short-form video content, we're currently testing the waters on YouTube and Spotify under a podcast named Slopcast. As you know, we are constantly experimenting with building long-form videos using the Mosaic AI video editor.
It's been quite the journey.
It has. So think of these short Slopcast videos as our beta testing phase for visual style. We desperately want your feedback on them. Our goal is to keep the visual experience calm, simple, and totally free from the frantic, hyper-stimulating editing that ruins most modern media.
We want to keep it focused.
Exactly. By the way, the team at Mosaic actually launched a new app called Motion yesterday. We have been experimenting with it, and it is exactly what we needed to maintain the deliberate pacing of our kind of content. We highly recommend our community check it out. The link for that is also in the description.
Expanding the network allows for a greater density of ideas. It is the intellectual equivalent of building social cohesion.
Let's zoom the lens out, way out. We started with the micromath of a single loan. We expanded to the psychology of a child, and then to the safety of a neighborhood block.
Right.
Now, the research asks us to look at the macro view. How does this network of quiet suburban streets and 30-year mortgages scale up to form the actual architecture of global finance?
This is where the scale of the system becomes truly awe-inspiring. To comprehend the global picture, we must examine the concept of collateral.
Collateral.
Yes, the entire global financial system, every sovereign wealth fund, every central bank, every massive institutional investor, they all require safe places to park trillions of dollars.
Because they can't just leave it in cash.
Exactly. They require collateral that will not evaporate during a crisis. The research introduces the profound importance of the implicit lien on American real estate.
Let's break down the implicit lien. What does that actually mean for the average person listening?
It means that a bundle of residential mortgages in the United States is considered AAA-rated collateral. It is viewed globally as one of the most secure stores of value on the planet.
Why is that?
To understand why, you have to look at the macroeconomic history of the United States. Despite world wars, dot-com crashes, and even the 2008 crisis, there has never been a multi-decade period where the aggregate value of residential land across the entire country was permanently destroyed.
Wow. So it always recovers.
Yes. The physical dirt remains, the rule of law enforcing the property rights remains, and the human desperation to maintain shelter remains.
So basically, because a family in Ohio will work 3 jobs to avoid losing their home, a sovereign wealth fund in Norway feels entirely safe, lending billions of dollars into the U.S. financial system, using that home as the ultimate backstop.
That is exactly how it works. That historical resilience creates a vortex for global capital. Trillions of dollars of cheap credit flow into the United States, specifically because the 30-year fixed mortgage provides an unparalleled mechanism for distributing and securing that capital.
And when those trillions of dollars arrive, they don't just sit in a digital vault. They are deployed. They build the physical world.
The scale is massive.
The scale of this economic engine is almost difficult to comprehend. The research notes that the construction sector and all the industries downstream from it account for between 15 and 18% of the total United States gross domestic product.
Nearly a fifth of the largest economy on Earth is directly tied to the act of creating and transferring residential shelters. But the true power of this engine is revealed in a metric the research calls the sales volume multiplier effect.
The fiscal multiplier. I love the mechanics of this. How does this actually play out in the real world when a house changes hands? Let's review that.
When a mortgage is finalized and a home is sold, it acts as a massive kinetic strike on the local economy.
A kinetic strike. I like that.
It sets off a massive chain reaction of localized spending. The transaction itself generates fees for real estate agents, title officers, and mortgage brokers.
That's just the beginning.
Right. The new buyer immediately hires moving companies. They travel to the local hardware store to purchase paint and tools. They hire local plumbers to upgrade fixtures. They buy new appliances and furniture, which generates retail sales. They contract local landscaping services.
It just ripples outwards.
And the research assigns a specific mathematical value to this chain reaction. It calculates that for every single dollar of targeted government stimulus or intervention that successfully drops into the housing sector, it creates a fiscal multiplier of $4.35.
$4.35. So $1 drops into housing and it bounces around the local economy 4 times over.
Exactly. That velocity of money is the lifeblood of the domestic economy. A single dollar enters the top of the funnel via a mortgage, and it circulates through the community over 4 times.
It pays the wages of the contractor, who then spends it at the local grocery store, paying the wages of the cashier.
Yes. The American economy is uniquely optimized to run on this specific, highly leveraged engine.
Which naturally leads to the most terrifying question of this entire deep dive.
I know where you're going with this.
If this delicate, interconnected architecture of mortgages, construction, and consumer spending is the engine of national prosperity, what happens to a country that gets the blueprint wrong? What happens when the underlying foundation of the housing market is flawed?
It's a great question, and the research provides 2 glaring cautionary tales from the global stage. It details the specific macroeconomic failures of Japan and China.
2 completely different approaches.
Yes, both of which attempted to build immense national wealth using entirely different housing architectures.
Let's dive deep into Japan first. In the late 1980s, Japan was an absolute economic juggernaut. People forget that there was a time when the land under the Imperial Palace in Tokyo was supposedly worth more than all the real estate in the state of California combined.
The bubble was astronomical.
So how did their housing engine completely stall?
Japan fell victim to what the research terms the adjustable rate mortgage trap, which was exacerbated by that massive speculative bubble. Unlike the United States, where the 30-year fixed rate provides a permanent, impenetrable shield against central bank policy changes, the Japanese housing market relied heavily on variable rate debt.
Variable rate.
Yes, consumers were highly exposed to the actions of the Bank of Japan.
So, referring back to our greenhouse analogy earlier, the Japanese homeowner didn't have climate control. They were completely exposed to the financial weather.
That's an excellent way to put it. When the Bank of Japan realized the speculative bubble was out of control, they aggressively hiked interest rates to cool the economy.
And what happened to the homeowners?
For the millions of middle-class families holding adjustable-rate mortgages, the impact was immediate and devastating. Their monthly debt servicing costs skyrocketed virtually overnight.
Oh, man. If your mortgage payment suddenly doubles, your discretionary spending drops to absolute zero.
The entire consumer economy froze. Families were forced to direct every available yen towards servicing debt on assets that were simultaneously plummeting in value.
A double whammy.
Exactly. This triggered a massive behavioral shift toward extreme saving and debt minimization, which crushed corporate revenues. Combine this structural debt trap with a rapidly aging demographic that was not forming new households to absorb the excess housing supply.
And you get the lost decade.
Right. A period of severe deflation, stagnant wages, and economic malaise that they have struggled to escape for 30 years.
A chilling warning about exposing the middle class to variable debt. Does that make sense to everyone? The danger of the RRM trap.
It's a crucial lesson.
But the research points to a completely different type of architectural failure unfolding right now in China. How is their model failing?
China's vulnerability stems from a hyper-concentration of wealth combined with the absence of a structural safety net.
Okay, unpack that.
In the United States, middle-class wealth is somewhat diversified through 401ks, equities, and a baseline social security system. In China, according to the research, a staggering 70% of all household wealth is locked entirely in residential real estate.
70%. That is a terrifying lack of diversification.
It is the result of a system where citizens have very few alternative avenues for reliable investment. Because China lacks a robust Western-style social safety net for healthcare and retirement, a family's apartment is not just their shelter.
What else is it?
It is their pension fund, their medical emergency reserve, and their generational wealth transfer mechanism all rolled into one.
So what happens when the value of that single hyper-concentrated asset begins to crack? We've seen the headlines about massive developers failing and entire cities of unfinished apartments.
When the real estate sector slows down, it triggers an immediate catastrophic collapse in consumer confidence. If your apartment loses 20% of its perceived value, and that apartment represents your entire life savings and future security, your psychological reality shifts overnight.
You feel profoundly poor.
Yes. The population immediately ceases all non-essential spending. When a billion people simultaneously decide to hoard cash out of sheer terror for their future, it creates a massive deflationary spiral that threatens the stability of the entire national economy.
Wow.
It is the ultimate danger of relying on housing for wealth without providing the stabilizing diversity of a broader financial ecosystem.
It is a delicate, perilous balance. The U.S. architecture uses the fixed-rate mortgage to provide absolute stability for the individual while relying on the broader, dynamic economy to provide growth and diversification. Seeing the catastrophic consequences of Japan and China really highlights how carefully constructed the American system is.
It's highly engineered.
It is. Just like the global economy requires a highly deliberate, rigorously tested architecture to prevent collapse, the way we process and present information to you on this show requires an equally obsessive structural design. Have you ever wondered how our deep dives actually come to life?
It's a pretty intense process.
Here is the actual blueprint of our process. It begins with you. Listeners send us signals and raw documents our research. We take that material and obsess over it. We look for the hidden through line, the narrative thread connecting the data.
And then we unleash the AI.
Then we unleash Gemini Pro to go full internet detective, rapidly pulling in historical context and cross-referencing claims. We then have to chase and often tame those wild AI tangents with some serious prompt kung fu. We validate every single assertion across thousands of signals.
The validation is key.
Then comes the agonizing part. We handcraft and polish the research. We painfully refine every single sentence, compressing massive macroeconomic theories into tight, no-slough audio that respects your time.
We don't want to waste anyone's time.
Once the audio is locked, we design the soundscape, the mood, and the visuals. Finally, we build the motion graphics. Our aesthetic is highly intentional. Minimalist, clean, high-contrast typography, simple geometric accents, subtle kinetic text reveals, and calm premium pacing. We rely heavily on strong visual hierarchy and white space. And to achieve all of that visual architecture, we rely entirely on Mosaic. Mosaic is an absolute game changer when it comes to video production. It allows us to build the visual equivalent of a flawless 30-year fixed foundation.
Information, much like a national economy, requires a robust architecture to be valuable. Without careful synthesis and structure, data is just noise.
As we bring this deep dive to a close, let's look back at the immense territory we've covered today. We started by questioning the logic of a single bank loan, and we ended up dissecting the macroeconomic failures of global superpowers.
If we synthesize the entirety of the research, a profound truth emerges. The concept of the American dream is frequently dismissed as mere sentiment, like a nostalgic marketing campaign about white picket fences. But the data proves it is a highly engineered, exceptionally functional financial mechanism.
By securing a 30-year fixed mortgage, a family is executing the ultimate financial maneuver. They are acquiring a massively leveraged hedge against inflation. They are securing an ontological sanctuary that scientifically improves the neurological development of their children.
Yes.
And they are physically plugging themselves into the mainframe of their community, acquiring a literal stake in the success of the American experiment.
The research concludes with a clear warning, though. This delicate architecture is not a law of nature. It requires ongoing, deliberate structural support.
Support from whom?
It requires both the government and the Federal Reserve to actively protect the existence of the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. It requires a relentless commitment to lowering zoning and regulatory barriers so that new inventory can continually be added to the system.
Because the moment the doors to this laboratory of middle-class wealth are locked, the entire economic engine stalls. It is the ultimate guarantor of individual liberty. But I want to leave you with a final, unaddressed question to mull over tonight.
A provocative thought.
Exactly. We have spent an hour detailing how flawlessly this architecture works for those who can access it. But what happens to the psychology, the stability, and the ultimate fabric of a nation if an entire generation finds themselves permanently priced out of the laboratory?
That is the big question.
If the entry fee to the greenhouse becomes too high, and millions are permanently relegated to Path B, are we risking not just a catastrophic loss of future economic velocity, but a permanent, irreversible loss of our national ontological security?
It is the defining economic question of our time. An engine of prosperity cannot function if the population cannot afford to step onto the train.
We want to thank you for taking this long, deliberate journey with us today. Please subscribe to the show so you don't miss our next exploration. We also invite you to share resources for our research. Why we ask for sources. Because the best ideas don't come from us alone. They emerge when your curiosity meets our process. In one line, your signals to our synthesis, to AI acceleration, to human obsession, to distilled insight. That is the mission or the flow of collaborative intelligence. Help us in creating a symbiosis of artificial and natural intelligence, particularly if you have expertise in behavioral psychology, urban economics, or real estate finance. I'm Satoshi.
And I'm Satoshi.